Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Jeremy.
Oh, try and put my fader up. Hello, Ben.
Hello. I can lip read, so
Yes.
it's fine.
All right, good. I thought you were looking at me strangely. I was like, oh, he can't hear me.
Yes, the usual.
The professional you are, you just carried on, glided over it.
Don't care. Straight through.
Brilliant. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology, change, innovation. And this week we are majoring on brand and communication. So we're going to have a look at that and perhaps tee up some further work and research into it. But let's kick off with the news. So big news this week, Ben, was the Gallagher and Willis acquisition, the completion of that, which makes Gallagher a big entity, doesn't it?
Oh, huge. Yeah. No, it's up there with the big boys. So it's a big shift in the broking world, really, but seems to have gone through pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
It's still, I suppose, a slight mystery to everybody why they've sold it, but there you go. That's strategy for you, but it's a very valuable operation.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. But the Gallagher brand, yeah, that'll be. I don't think it's as well known actually, in lots of ways as people might think. Gallagher's. So if they want to call me up and we can help them out, that'll be fine. But yeah, so they've got some interesting work to do on that. But it's another reshuffle of the broking world.
Yeah, it's
Seems
interesting.
to be one a week, isn't it? Really. I mean, we knew this was coming. Of course.
Yeah, just completed. So it's obviously big news. I think it's interesting from an employee market point of view. We talk quite a bit about the, in inverted commas, war for talent, and whether being a big organization really helps that, or whether you want to work for a nimble, fast moving, fast pace startup or smaller organization where you might have more.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting to see how that's.
I think it is. I mean, I think often the preference for for quite a lot of people in the insurance market is, particularly in sales positions, is to be almost like hired guns. But actually, as the businesses have built over the years, I think they've built quite loyal staff or employees, even in those sorts of roles. Turnover of staff obviously does matter, because you build, in sales teams in particular, I think you build up experience and knowledge over a long period of time, which is why you get all these litigation battles, because they take sales, to a certain extent, take business with them when they go. But equally, now you can join one of these big operations, smallish operation. Before you know it, you'll be in a big operation because it's emerging so quickly, or you're sold. So I don't know that you can call it really. I mean, even what we might call particularly in the broking world, I mean, what you might call you might equate to the smaller specialist in the carrier side that are coming in and starting up. I mean, on the carrier side, you can kind of do one class of business, very niche. I think it's harder to do that on the broking side, I guess. Yeah. MGAs do sort of do that, but even if you look at people like CFC, they've grown way beyond the cyber stuff that they started with. And even it seems like the model in the broking market is a bit of scale. Even for the McGills, they're growing quickly and so on, even though they're specialist. So it's you've probably got to work for something pretty big.
Yeah.
Otherwise, scale, you can't get. These businesses can't really make the returns if they've not got that scale. No.
Yeah. We shall watch with interest how that one develops.
Yeah.
Moving on. So for everyone out there who's not up to speed with the feature at Lloyd's, there was a new update released this week. So another.
We were so excited.
We were when this dropped in my email inbox on Tuesday. I was overjoyed.
I am
so
always
back,
when
I
this
didn't
comes.
open it till Wednesday, but it's like Christmas.
Those 3 words, core data record, they're just so enticing.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things about this. Firstly, the core data record, and part of the email asks for input and guidance and to take part in the consultation process. And you go, well, that's all right. It's a targeted email. I mean, you're only going to receive this if you're part of Lloyd's. But then we both saw it as a LinkedIn post, didn't we? Just inviting anybody to take part and give their opinion on the core data record, which seems an odd approach. But anyway, I'm sure they know what they're doing.
I think it's very odd that I would have thought that you would need to target against the people who really were the influencers or the decision makers or the users. I think if you just go out generally to people in the market, that feels like more like a PR exercise than a proper testing exercise.
Yeah,
but no doubt Lloyd's will have will say different. But I would always say, and I'm sure people in my sort of business would say, for these very specific things with quite a lot of technical aspects and as I say, specifics, you kind of want to go to people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah, indeed. You would also,
mind you, nobody's going to fill this in if they're not part of it. It's not like you'd be slightly sad if you decided to do it just because you fancied.
Yeah, I did click through to see it, but I actually couldn't understand how you would give feedback on it. So anyway, I'm sure all the technical people will do, which is fine. The really annoying thing about this email, and I've talked about this before, we've both talked about this before, is just the use of language and the kind of the straight to the 3-letter acronym for everything all the time. And so I just kind of listed out, just in this one email, the amount of times that they use 3-letter acronyms for stuff. So here we go. Faster claims payments. They decided to put that into FCP. London Bridge Risk Protected Cell Company. That's a PCC. The Far East Syndicate in a Box is that. Omen Insurance Company. Core Data Records, which we know and love. The Market Reform Contract, which will become the IMRC, which I guess I don't know where the I is. I don't know what the I means. I think it's integrated. I don't know. And then the insurance linked securities vehicle. It's just
it's crazy. It's getting worse, right? This is a disease that has to be chopped off. And I think we should start a campaign against jargon, because we did start this show talking about the ridiculous jargon in this market, and I think there's more and more of it, particularly as you get tech companies coming in as well. I think there's a danger it's going to just spin out of control. But we were talking last week about Caroline Wagstaff from the LMG saying how impenetrable the market can be. Well, this is one of the problems, right? People just making up things. I mean, I think organisations have to say there's got to be a reason for this. We need to play an English campaign in the market, and we should lead it, Jeremy.
Yeah. I mean, what's wrong with saying faster claims payment? I mean, how long did that take?
Well, no, exactly. I mean, and if people want to take it to an acronym because it becomes common usage, that's fine. But deciding that it is, and then saying I'll put an I on the front of something that's already an acronym is just going. It's just crazy, really is. I mean, trouble is, with this sort of thing, what people do is I get it, like people mention things to me almost in passing at social events and things. Not that we can do any of those particularly at the moment, but or maybe we can. I don't know. Anyway,
Nobody knows.
people go. They go, Ben. If you've read about the the ILS DPW initiative, that's pretty bad, isn't it? And you go, maybe, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll admit I pretend. I go, yeah, it is. That's quite a move or something. Just because I feel I should know, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's got to stop. So there we are. This is the first.
Anyway, some of it's misleading as well. That's the part of the problem. It's like just trying to pretend something's happened when it isn't. Not that I'd ever accuse that of Lloyd's.
No.
Because
and also they have different acronyms for the same thing, or different words for the same thing, like exchanging, the Bureau, Central Services. What are you talking about? What are you actually
there is one that I've got that I don't know that I'm going to apply. IAAH. Is anything actually happening?
Right. Anyway, so we start our campaign.
That's generally useful for the insurance market. That one.
Yeah. Join us. Solidarity.
Join the movement.
Yeah.
JMT.
So, as I said at the top of the show, we are looking at brand and brand communication today. We thought we'd look at this because we've been talking just generally quite a bit about the role of brand. And if you look at other industries and where they're investing their dollars at the moment, you'll see a lot of it is going into building brands, building a brand that can then be communicated not just through logos and websites, but through employee interactions with customers and other stakeholders as well. And we feel that in insurance, and particularly Lloyd's, the London market, I think communication is a real problem. So we just thought we'd talk about it in the context of brand and communicating brand. I think, Ben, you've kind of picked up a few kind of interesting
things. I think a bit of background. I mean, I think we've always felt that, and a lot of other people, not just us, have felt that communication is an issue for the insurance market. I think we came on it quite heavily in the last few weeks because we've been talking particularly about the talent crunch that's going on at the moment, which I think is partly a communications issue, which the market hasn't properly communicated what it's about and the good stuff, and therefore we're now potentially seen as a bit boring, a bit impenetrable. Obviously we just talked about jargon and so on. These things are all barriers to people coming into the market, and what happens is that those barriers are up and then people work on pre-assumptions of what the market's about. I think from within, we know there's quite a lot of interesting things going on. And I mean, I don't know that it's more exciting than working at Google or less exciting, but it's, there's certainly areas of this market that I think are really interesting, and I wouldn't in any way say young people shouldn't be involved. But whether it feels, whether that's accessible to people when I'm not there or other people aren't there to tell them that, I suspect not. I think there is a lot of regulatory pressure which has come about because of lack of transparency, which is also to do with communication, and I think fair values about that as well as pricing. So, and then what we're going to talk about in a second, which is the brand. As all these organisations merge, move, consolidate, position it competitively, then brand becomes more and more important, as we've always predicted, and we are seeing now much more differentiation, I think, in the market around brand. Yeah.
So let's kick off. So interestingly, I think you've picked out a statement to start off with from Andrew Horton. Obviously, he was at Beazley, now gone to QBE, but in this statement, he's really talking about people and culture, and it's something we talk about on this show a lot. So it's interesting that he's majoring on that.
Well, so his statement is, if we can get the people and culture bit right, then everything else is relatively straightforward. Now, I think relatively straightforward is probably relative, but what I think he's saying is all the fundamentals of an insurance business are not particularly different, but what does make the difference is whether you can get the people and values and culture thing right. And I would not in any way disagree with that. He goes on to say in the article that that is not easy. It's difficult. And if you look across all of that, what I'd call the really good brands, the really good businesses, that's where they major. They major on the people, they major on the culture and the values of the organization, so they create consistency around their people. So for Andrew Horton to be saying this is very important, and it's repeated, and it's a great I have to say, this is a really great statement to be made. It's intelligent. It's exactly what you want from leadership. He could have got up there and done the usual. We're going to restructure and do the rates and look at the businesses, and none of that would have meant anything. It would have all just been sort of waffle about what he might or might not do with the fundamentals of the business. But what he's gone for is right for the central thing of performance, which is the people in this business. So he set out his intent. Hey, look, you want to work for him, don't you? Because that's a great statement. I'm interested. You're going to make the people and culture and values work. So he's going to already from that point, he's set out the thing. Now, we'll go on now to look at the brand as it currently is. And brand is ultimately, and selling and everything else is about alignment. You have to align the customer's needs, your organization, the products and services, how you communicate those, your people, your behaviors. Everything is always in brand work about alignment, basically.
Yeah. So let's have a look at that now.
Yeah, so if you read that statement and then you look at, and I've just picked on websites because that's probably where you get most of the sense of the positioning of an organization, usually from the front page. Sometimes they're a bit out of date, and that's you could be a bit unfair. But QBE, against what Andrew Horton has just said, looks pretty kind of standard corporate here. I mean, there's a bit here obviously about investment impact on some initiatives, CSR type initiative. There is actually a person on the front page, quite a lot of stock photography. It does look a bit old fashioned, doesn't really give me the sense that it's all about people and culture and values. Okay. It's a corporate entity. You could put an oil company over the top there. You could put anything, almost any financial services, and you just wouldn't read it.
Yeah.
To me, I wouldn't read this. I wouldn't be that interested. It's not capturing my attention as Andrew Horton's statement does.
And I think what is interesting, if you go back to kind of, let's have a quick look at the Beazley page. So where he's come from. So you would have thought, okay, you lay down that marker in the sand. We're gonna focus on people, culture, and then you would have thought that something like this, the Beazley one, will then emerge on the QBE side.
And you've got to remember here that the large organizations that develop brands put a lot of money and effort and investment and time and thought into it. So QBE will have done that, and they will have said that's where we end up. Beazley, the same thing, and obviously Andrew Horton's come from Beazley, and we know that they come top of the tables. They're always top quartile for their brand, and they're seen as dynamic and innovative and all those sorts of things. So they're a distinctive brand now. So when you look at what they do, what they don't do is they kind of talk about themselves. They talk about ideas and insights. They put their brand through different lenses so that we associate with them in a real world, if you like, in a real business world. So rapid changes in risk for digital health providers isn't saying, oh, Beazley's got a product for digital health providers. It probably has. I hope it has. But it's engaging you with the topic, the subject, the thing that's important, which is the need, not with telling you how good my insurance product is. Because Andrew has just said, that's kind of boring. That's straightforward. Of course, we could do an insurance product. It's what it says about you. So if you're in that space, you'll go, I'm going to read that article because it's probably interesting. And guess what? There's an insurance product in there somewhere. I mean, I know that. We know that. We're not fools. We know that they're selling insurance, but they're taking the angle that matters. So insights and ideas is where many, many businesses in other sectors are going to now, because that nobody wants to hear about their core product.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is just another It comes up.
That's the same one.
Same one.
It's good though. Worth seeing it twice.
Oh yeah, look at that. It is the same one. I've put it up twice. But I think I absolutely agree with you. I mean, that will draw you in just as of interest, and then they become not only seen as, okay, they've got these products and services in this area, but they're seen as like, okay, we're actually leading the conversation, where we're leading the debate around a particular
thought leadership, point of view, POV as it's called, to use another acronym. But that's where consultancies have sold. So where Beazley's brand and positioning is going to more looking like a kind of consultancy than just a bunch of products. So that's an interesting positioning. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It just is a different positioning, and it's distinctive, and it draws you in much more, I believe.
Yeah. So let's have a look at McGill, because they're obviously a newish entity, only a few years old. So you would have thought that they'd why is my machine not working? It's working.
So McGill's an interesting, obviously, play in the market. I mean, it's branding there. You can see on the right hand side, it's identity. We'd call it the McGill and Partners. It's sort of quasi modern. I'm not an expert on branded and kind of design elements. That feels reasonable, but it also feels somewhat, the and Partners thing feels somewhat traditional. So there's a bit of that traditional feel. Photos all in black and white to give a sort of timeless feel, I think, to the business. So it is a kind of quite traditional feel to the McGill brand. It's not right out there. We'll see some others in a minute, which are much more out there in the kind of modern thing. What they focused on here, I can't show it here, but if you scroll over these faces, this is all about the teams, the people. Heavy focus on the people, but each of them almost like, they're kind of sort of iconic figures. You could look at these in 20 years and they'd look the same, because that timeless black and white thing works, and then you scroll over and there's quite a lot of information on them. Whereas you look at a lot of insurance businesses, what they do is they go, okay, so we've got this is our D&O business, and here's the head. This is the head of D&O, and this is the deputy, and this is the underwriting assistant. That's all it says.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you anything about those people. Photos look a bit naff quite often, or they're not done in a consistent way. So this is really selling the people as a brand, McGill.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. I like the photography actually as well. I'm not a big fan of color in these things, because it doesn't look as consistent as black and white. But anyway, it's a design thing. But it's been thought through. So that's McGill. The people and people's one option for businesses to build on.
Definitely. So let's have a look. We've done QB. Liberty. Now they're a company that we've got a lot of time for, and I think this, perception is your immediate perception is it's clean. It looks like a modern organization. Big images. There's a picture of looks like Matthew Moore there speaking at a conference. So and again, look at all the people. It's So
you get an immediate sense of, they're I suppose the ship in a way is the complex risk, and then they've used real, the fact of putting Matthew there on a stage, it's not just stock photography. So they've not just used the stock photography. I don't know that actually. I think I don't know about the middle one. I think the one on the right is actually real.
Yeah, it looks
event
like
as well. So that's quite cool to do that. And you need to think that through. Anyway, they're focused on people in the mutuality, and it's a big global business now. Obviously, about $6.5 billion now, the Liberty Specialty Markets bit, but it's also part of the Liberty Mutual Group. So inevitably, there is a degree of conservatism around the how they position themselves, and they are. They've often been described as a sleeping giant. Now they're sort of coming to life and growing and building. But there's a lot of different, kind of softer ideas in here as well that come through about the brand. So there's a talent play in here. There's a there's definitely that. There's a community play around the mutuality, and there's a partnership idea. And I'll just make a kind of declaration here. I've done a lot of work with Liberty on their brand, and in fact on their original brand development, which started off with the idea of partnership and prospering and working together. So that's a very common idea in insurance, which is to say that we help your business to thrive or to prosper, and then we prosper too. So it's a win-win. So this is very much about partnership, and they've lately picked up the mutuality idea, which I think they've done quite nicely.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And it keeps them in with their bosses in Boston as well, obviously. So that's alignment, right? I mean, alignment is also practicality. I mean, they couldn't come out and say, with a brand that was nothing to do with Boston. So they need and must have some link. There's benefits to that too, obviously, in financial strength and rating and everything else. So it's good, yeah. And so it's as you say, a nice clean feel to it.
Yeah. So we also picked up a couple of examples where they might be lacking, or at least they kind of show the Me Too element of insurance. And we're not picking on these organizations. We are just highlighting areas where you quite often see this. And I think this highlights, I guess, the opportunity. So we've seen it done well from new organizations and organizations that are on a journey, with the QBE example. Let's just have a look at the Atrium website, because this is symptomatic of a lot of the London market websites out there, and it just looks very dated for a start. That it isn't clean. It's just a lot of text, isn't it? And it's
I don't know what they're thinking. I honestly don't know what they were thinking with this, because it does feel like it feels quite cluttered. I think they tried to give it the sense of it's a bit of a Word document, but compared with these other businesses that are around and about their big idea, their absolute simple but compelling positioning, I don't think this does it. If you're Atrium, proud to be a Lloyd's underwriter, I think that's quite outdated now. I don't think there's anything wrong with being proud to be a Lloyd's underwriter, but I think a lot of the risks that are written, and I know Atrium does write stuff outside of Lloyd's, I believe they do. I think they're doing some technology stuff, obviously, which is good, and they've got a lot of good ideas, but I don't think this kind of does it for me for a brand. It's too much information, it's too disparate, and this isn't. We're not getting in here, as you say, Jeremy, to sort of detailed critiques of brand of websites. What I'm trying to do is to say there is a trend, and you've got to be on trend to some extent. You don't want to be too far ahead of it, and you don't want to be too far behind it. I think this is a bit behind, as you say. It's a bit dated, and it's not as dated as something we're going to look at in a minute, but it's dated.
Yeah. Just so let's have a look at this one.
Yeah.
So this one does look dated. Faraday Syndicate.
Yeah, so this is Groundhog Day for me. This is when I started, probably just even before I started working in this market 20 odd years ago, or fully working in this market. This is very old fashioned. I think in brand terms, it doesn't make any. I mean, the professional, practical, secure. I just think they're three fairly disconnected words to me, and I really think that branding has stepped up from here, or brand development has stepped up from here. I think it's, if you look at the things where businesses are positioning around purpose, and AIG is doing a lot of work in this space, Chubb's doing a lot of work in this space. The big players are doing it. So doing a kind of this kind of half-hearted, not really thought through stuff just looks both dated, and it doesn't really land anywhere at all for me. I think we said about this, why not go for a third P on professional, practical, secure? Why have an S?
Yeah.
It's like the thinking, but you could get away with that in the 90s. It didn't matter, because you're just a bunch of underwriters who people knew, and they didn't care about it. And Faraday could do more than this, and I think it's it's those tired pictures of Lloyd's. Everybody's got a picture of Lloyd's. Yes, they've done it from an angle, so but it's not really. I don't even know that that's not just stock photography again. So what's the personality of Faraday here? Doesn't come out at all. Nothing comes out at all here.
Yeah.
For me, compared with some of these others we've just looked at.
I think there's nothing more to say about that, but I think it does highlight the opportunity, I think, for the market to really start to understand what brand means, and not just from we've got a product to sell and we want to sell it to people. Your brand is everything. It's about what it means to what you are as an organization, how your people act, how they go about their business. It's really important.
What I think, Jeremy, as well, is that this is the Lloyd's is a franchise operation effectively, and it seems to me that Lloyd's doesn't exert some of the things that a normal franchise operation would around these softer, as they'd see it, these softer issues of what you look like. I think Lloyd's could do with doing some work on this with its players and say, look, we do want to look at how the look and feel, because the talent issue is really, really key, and the diversity issue is really, really key. I think there should be some kind of broad parameters of things where I'm sure the businesses would push back against it, but I just don't think it's always about the lowest common denominator. Look, if Beezy's doing a brilliant job, or others are doing a brilliant job putting the people front and center, they're showing the diversity, the visual sense of diversity in the market, which is absolutely crucial to its future. If someone else just wanders up and says, I think I'll just chuck up an old-fashioned thing that makes this look like we've come out of the 1980s, I kind of think you could call them out on that with some guidelines. I don't feel it. I think it puts people off if that's the first one that the young, sparky person comes to.
And also, we've talked about this before. The regulator will be they're already looking at organizations' culture and the way they go about their work, and that plays into the brand element as well. So it's not just you're presenting a poor website. It's deeper than that, and I think they won't really be looking at your website, but I think it's symptomatic about perhaps the way that the mindset of the organization that allowed that.
Talent. But talent does go to websites, doesn't it? Because that's where it looks first, and and they go on to see if there's any jobs, and then they see what's on offer. But if it just doesn't look cool, it just, I don't know what you're attracting. You're attracting nothing. You might even be repelling people from this market. So I think that should be looked at, and maybe give them some help, because I'm not saying that people necessarily have to know how to do this, nor do they have to, develop the next, kind of Amazon or something.
No,
it just needs to have some of the elements thought through and invested in properly. Not just talent, but things like, the broader thing about ESG and climate. There's a lot of people getting picked out at the moment, by organizations that want to have a pop at the market, sometimes for good reason, but don't create the opportunity to make that worse.
Couldn't agree more. So that's just a few thoughts that we were talking about before we came on air. I hope you found those helpful.
Yeah, we'll do some more on this, won't we? Because we're going to do some more thinking about it, and some more ideas around what good looks like.
And I think, aren't you doing a survey, Ben, as well, around brand?
Yeah, we're looking, and so we're doing, we will put some more out on this. So we've got a new business coming up, which is called InsureIndex, which is all about the brands and how to showcase those brands, because at the moment nothing pulls it all together anywhere. So it's interesting when we do this little exercise here, just looking at a few brands. But remember, there are 350 organizations in this market. Now, they're not all fully branded, but 350 organizations who represent the London market. And it's highly complex and quite difficult to understand. I think if you go to some of the brands, the bigger ones, you do get what they're about. If you're new to it, you get it. They're not too jargon laden. They're not too bad, and they've really thought through their stuff. We need more of that. That needs to be a thing that's invested in, so that the market gets better and improves. Yeah. So that's the point. And the other thing is it's competition as well. You get the business, you see the business, and clients get to know you and trust you. So it's important.
Definitely. Good. Right. Thanks, Ben. That was a really interesting look at that. So let's wrap things up. What are you doing this weekend? Anything?
No, I'm going to do the usual football ferrying around, and there's I've got to go and see my folks. It's a trip to the delights of the South Coast, Eastbourne.
Excellent. I think it's Christmas party, school Christmas party, not Christmas party, Christmas fete. I don't know.
Yeah.
I assume they're gonna. It's all gonna be outside, so it'll be freezing. But anyway, they haven't cancelled it, so that's the main thing.
Mulled wine.
Mulled wine, yeah, keeps the
Half
COVID
a pint
at
of
bay.
mulled wine. That's the best thing. Straight down, neck it, and you feel good for half an hour.
Give me another.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. Good.
What about you? What are you up to? Oh yeah, school partying. That's it.
School. But and then we've actually got some people coming around. I don't know. At the moment, it's all possible to have people coming around.
Good.
So.
And what we got next week?
Next week, we've got a guest. So Rachel Bishop will be joining us. Technology and Change, now a consultant, was with AltViz, which is an AI automation company. So quite fascinating, and not just in insurance either. So it'll be fascinating to see how that type of technology is changing the way organizations are working and thinking about some of the challenges. So looking forward to that. We
haven't done tech for a while, have we?
No, we've got TinTech London Markets coming up as well in February. So right. that'd be good to talk about that ahead of the conference. Good. Right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you all next week. Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.